My aunt is a seamstress who works from a shed in her garden that's been adapted into a sewing room. A couple of weeks ago, she began to have debilitating back pain, which stopped her from being able to do most things, including bending over a sewing machine. She sells her stuff online and has had a recent influx of orders for the Christmas season. The back pain has come at the worst possible time. She taught me how to sew as a child, so to help her out a bit, I've been going to her place after my day job, spending the evening sewing in her shed/studio, and sleeping in her spare room most nights. This is exactly what I was doing last night, when my aunt got a strange WhatsApp message on her phone. She didn't tell me about this until the next morning, which is only a few hours ago at the time of this writing. A bit of background. Since a couple of months ago, there's been a scam circulating on WhatsApp that has affected most of my friends and family. The messages will go something like this. Hey, you need to ring X urgently. From Y. Where X is the name of a random contact in your address book, and Y is the initial of the person that supposedly sent the message. However, the message won't come from their number, but a random one. In fact, the message is sent by an anonymous third party, and neither of the others have any knowledge of the messages. I've personally never gotten one of these, until today. However, my brother was the first to receive them. He called his provider to report them, and the provider said it was likely a scam company trying to get you to call the random number so they can charge an exorbitant amount of money for calling them. They also said they couldn't track the numbers to a single place, but they have tracked them bouncing off towers all over Scotland and Wales. We live in England. They advised him to report each message to WhatsApp. They never come through any others, and advised everyone else to do the same. So last night, when my aunt got a message from a number she didn't recognize, she did exactly that. She reported the message without opening it properly, which immediately removes the message from your inbox. Except this time, she got another message before she'd even had the chance to put her phone down. This message was a picture from a number she didn't recognize. She opened the message, but she didn't tap on the picture to open it, because she was afraid that action would allow hackers to enter her phone. She's a bit of a Luddite. However, she could tell even from the blurry preview that it was a photograph of her front door. For those who don't know, pictures arrive blurry until you download them properly, unless you set your settings to do so automatically. Not only that, but it was a photo from the inside of her front door, taken from the entrance of the lounge and looking down the hallway. Accompanying the picture was a single line of text saying, "From G," as if a person with a G initial was signing off in the message. She puzzled over who could have taken it or sent it for a while, but unable to walk far enough to come and ask me outside, and somewhat drowsy from pain meds, she forgot about it and went to bed. A few hours later, I finally turned myself in. I had a quick bite to eat, locked all the doors, and went to sleep. Nothing was amiss. This morning, I woke up on my day off work, and my aunt was feeling a bit better, so we went for a bite to eat in a cafe. While we were there, she told me about the mystery message she'd gotten. She was more puzzled, but I was immediately alarmed. She couldn't show me the message as she'd reported it as spam, but she's definitely not the type to make something like this up. I've lurked on this sub for a few years now. This definitely raised a red flag for me. I was still wondering whether or not to inform the police on our drive home, but my aunt was afraid of making a fuss over nothing. I took her back to her place, made sure to check every room, door, and window, and stayed for a cup of tea. As we were sitting there watching TV, I got a WhatsApp message on my phone. I open it, and it's a blurry picture that I can't quite make out. The sinking feeling in my gut tells me I already know what it is. I open the picture, and there on my phone is a perfectly clear photo of the front door from the inside. I turn my head slightly to the left and look down the exact same hallway towards the exact same door. While my aunt asks me what's wrong, I stand up, walk to the lounge door, and point my phone at the front door. It's the exact same image. The same door, wallpaper, carpet, ornaments, everything. It comes from a number I don't recognize and is accompanied by a sign-off from G. In my panic, and this may be the stupidest thing I've ever done, I immediately pressed report. Before I realized what I've done, the message, the number, and the photo were all gone. I told my aunt and she was horrified. We're both very rational people, so we tried to put our heads together and come up with an explanation. We tried to match up the numbers under G in our address books. Mine is a cousin who's never even been to my aunt's house. He confirmed this when I called him to explain. And hers is the same cousin, as well as an old business associate who has also never been to her house. I called around my family to let them know what had happened and asked the stupid question, "Do you happen to have any pictures of my aunt's front door on your phone?" Of course, nobody does. Not even my aunt, so it's not like someone is somehow sending her her own photos. Also on WhatsApp, you can tell when a message had been forwarded from somewhere else. As far as I recall, this message was not forwarded. We're both familiar with the scam mentioned above, and the random initial sign-off does make a connection, but the picture is particularly chilling. Nobody I spoke to had ever received anything other than text requests to call a random person. We have no idea where the picture came from, when it was taken, or who by, but I can be certain that whoever it was took it from about 2 feet away from where I sit typing this right now. My aunt has lived in her house for a decade, is very friendly with her neighbors, and has no known enemies. She's never had anything like this happen before. I explained what was happening to her neighbors and told them to make sure their houses were secure. I also asked them to keep an eye out for anyone suspicious and to call the police if they see anything. The worrying thing is that often when my aunt is sewing in her shed, she leaves her front door unlocked. She also always listens to her radio when she's sewing, so she wouldn't hear anyone in the garden. The shed is immediately opposite the front door. It's insulated, and I can attest that the hum of the machines and the radio, you often couldn't even hear people knocking. Sometimes my uncle is home, but he's often away on business, and that would leave the house totally open to intruders. My aunt is checking for anything that might have been burglarized, but she hasn't noticed anything out of place. We don't know if this could be a weird phone issue, a scam, or even a prank, but I've read enough of these stories to know that this could possibly be the beginnings of something creepy. I've thought about reporting this to the police, but neither me nor my aunt have the messages to show them, and nothing seems to have been moved or taken. There's absolutely no evidence that the pictures were taken by an intruder in the first place, so I'm not even sure what they could do if we did tell them. My uncle is coming back to town tonight, so I won't be staying there, but I do think it's strange that the only time I've ever gotten a strange message like that is when I was sitting in the same room the picture had been taken in, almost as if someone knew I was there. Otherwise, why not send it last night? This happened in the summer of 2010, when I was just entering my teenage years. My family took a trip to a really nice hotel in the city. I can't really remember why we decided to take the trip, but I remember a lot of family friends coming with and staying in adjacent rooms. I've never asked my parents, but it's not really that important to the story. To preface this, I'm a bit of a scaredy cat, and I always have been. I'm a pretty skinny and fragile kid, so I get spooked very easily, even now. This, however, was almost definitely not me freaking myself out like I normally did. Looking back, I'm incredibly lucky I trusted my instincts. This hotel has a strange design to it. The lobby was actually on the 4th floor, not the bottom floor, which I found strange. To access the lobby, you had to use the elevator. There was no way for you to get to it from the stairs. This information would have been nice before everything happened, as you'll soon find out. The hotel was organized in a square shape. Every floor was lined with a balcony, and you could look down into the lobby and cafe area from your floor. Essentially, if you were walking to your room, you could be seen from anyone that was on your floor if they just stepped out of their room and looked around. I was always afraid I'd fall over the balcony and sail down 8 stories to my death, but they were high enough to a point that I wasn't too concerned for my safety. The first day or two was nice. My friends and I hung out and played cards all day, or we watched whatever was on TV. At night, we'd explore the halls of the hotel and tell each other spooky ghost stories. It was a really fun time, even though I didn't fully understand why we were even there. On the 3rd day, though, things got strange really fast. I woke up to the sound of screaming coming from outside my door. Now, because of the hotel's design I mentioned, sounds from the lobby would echo all the way up to the top of the building. When I walked outside to investigate, I looked over the balcony to see what the commotion was about. I saw a girl laying on the ground, eggs and milk splattered everywhere around her. People were rushing to help her, and I heard a couple people telling each other to call 911. It seemed like the girl was unconscious. Maybe she had passed out or something. I scanned the lobby and saw that my family and a couple of my friends were in the lobby getting breakfast, all staring at the event in front of them. I decided now would be a good time to rush down to meet them to find out what exactly had happened. The elevator was on the opposite side of my floor, so I took the stairwell located right next to my room. We were on the 7th or 8th floor, so I knew I only had to take about 4 flights down. Not a big deal. I descended for a little while looking for the number 4 on the wall or the letter L. I passed floor 5, ready to find a door to the lobby. I took about 2 more flights of steps before realizing there hadn't been a door for the 4th floor, nor had there been a door for the 2nd or 3rd. At this point, I probably should have turned back, but I continued downward because I was tired and didn't want to climb all the way back up. There were all these weird side hallways that went into pitch-black areas with a bunch of piping and wiring, and though I was curious to explore, I passed them by. Quickly, I hit the bottom floor, a dimly lit and cold room with cinder block walls and concrete floors. In front of me was a set of double doors. I hesitated at first, but I assumed that this was just another way back to the lobby, so I opened them and entered. Behind the doors was a massive warehouse-type room, probably the size of a smaller basketball stadium. The only light coming in was from the stairwell behind me, so I really wasn't able to see much. Stairs were stacked and covered in plastic wrap. Tables lined the wall, and in the distance I thought I could see boxes stacked and lined against the wall as well. I was probably in the storage room for the hotel. I looked around and saw an elevator at the back of the room, so I made my way towards it. I closed the door to the stairwell and began to walk in the dim light. The room was super muggy and dusty, and it seemed like nobody had been down there for a very long time. As I got closer to the elevator, I noticed that it was a little bigger than the elevators in the lobby and other floors. I pressed the up button, but got no response. There was a card swiper next to the button. It must have been for employees only, I thought. I turned back toward the stairwell doors, making my way past the chairs and tables along the wall. When I got to the door, I gave it a tug. Locked, of course. This is when things started to hit me. and I realized I was stuck in the dark, dusty basement of a hotel. I didn't have a phone because my parents wouldn't let me get one until I graduated middle school, so I couldn't even call anyone for help. Everyone likely assumed I was still asleep in the room, so I began to freak out, believing that nobody was going to look for me. I searched all around the warehouse, looking for other ways out. Some areas of the place were better lit than others, so I looked around in areas I could see first, before starting on the darker side of the room. There was one other set of doors that I found, but that one happened to be locked as well. I began to cry, and I was scared that nobody would ever find me in this basement. I swear it felt like hours, but I think only a handful of minutes had passed before I heard the door creak open. It wasn't the door from the stairwell, rather the second door I had found. A slim, middle-aged man in a lab coat came out of the doors. Now, if this was 21-year-old me seeing this man, I would be very confused as to why this man was wearing this outfit in a hotel. I was only 12 or 13 at the time, so I was immediately relieved at the sight of an adult who looked smart. I approached him with my eyes full of tears, and he immediately looked surprised to see me, as you'd expect. "What are you doing down here?" he yelled. "I got lost on my way to the lobby, and I've been locked in here. Do you have a key?" I was shaking and eager to get out of there. He didn't answer my key question. Instead, he said, "I know a way out of here. Follow me." He began to walk towards the doors with the stairwell, and I followed, relieved that someone had finally come to save me. We approached the doors, and I began to reach for the handle, but he continued walking right past. "Isn't it right here?" I asked him. I'll never forget the look on his face when I said that. He looked nervous, and though it was dim, I could see sweat dripping from his forehead and forming up behind his glasses. "No, it's this way," he said sternly. I continued to follow him, but I was now nervous myself. We had passed the door to the stairs, and were now headed toward a darker side of the basement, away from the elevators. He looked like he had no clue where he was leading me, as he kept checking around him, almost as if he was taking in the surroundings for the first time. We turned a corner and began walking towards the boxes, a dead end. I immediately froze, realizing that something was very, very wrong. This man had no idea where he was going, nor did he appear to work at the hotel. I said to him with my voice shaking, "Where are we going?" He turned to me and said, "This way. Just follow me." I knew that there were no doors by those boxes. I had checked there first after I found out that the stairwell door was locked. I want to thank whatever God is up there for gifting me with the idea I had next. I started yelling, as loud as I could. I yelled so loud that I started to give myself a headache. The man, irritated and plugging his ears, began yelling back at me, "What are you doing? Be quiet!" I continued to yell. I don't even remember how long I was yelling for. Finally, the man snapped and began quickly walking towards me. I went in a full sprint towards the stairwell doors, hoping to God they'd somehow be magically open. He didn't run after me. He walked sternly behind me, muttering things like, "Stupid fucker." I was about 5 feet from the door when somebody burst through. My savior, a hotel janitor who had heard the screaming from the stairwell. He saw the situation, me and some random man in a lab coat in a locked basement, and immediately he told me to get behind him. The janitor asked me who the man was. I said I had no idea, and that he had come in through the door on the other side of the room. I pointed towards the door. The janitor quickly radioed into the desk that he had found a child in the basement, and quietly, presumably so I wouldn't hear, he said, "This man came from outside. Get security," or something like that. The man in the lab coat started trying to argue with the janitor, claiming that he was simply looking for a bathroom. The janitor clearly wasn't buying it. Wait till security gets here, and you can talk to them about it. I was standing behind him the whole time, trying to take in what was happening, confused out of my mind. Eventually, an employee from the front desk arrived and took me back up the steps to the lobby where I met with my family. They had no idea I was even missing. I told them the story, crying and shaking, and they hugged me tightly, thanking the employee over and over for their help. I never got to thank that janitor, though. Looking back now, I have no clue what that man was doing in the basement. I don't have any information as to what happened afterwards, or even who he was. I know for a fact that the incident with the girl in the lobby was unrelated, something about low blood sugar. I've thought about that day a lot, and the only explanation I can put together is that that door that I had found in the basement led to the streets of the city, where he must have wandered in from. I have no clue what his intentions were, why he was wearing a lab coat, or why he chose to pretend to know a way out. To be frank, this could have been a misunderstanding of some sort, and I just chose a really bad time to get lost. But all I know for sure is if I hadn't screamed my lungs out, I might not be telling this story the same way, or at all. I've had a few stalkers in my life, and quite a few weird things happen, but none of these things bother me still like this one does. I was about 7 or 8, back in the 80s, when I answered the phone one day. The man on the other end somehow pulled me into a conversation. I don't remember what we talked about, or why he said he was even calling, but we talked for over an hour. I don't remember anything creepy from that conversation. Not that one, anyway. Over the next year, he called 6 or 7 times maybe, and each time we talked a little bit more. He usually just let me talk, all that I wanted, and I told him a lot of things. I don't even really know why. Maybe it was because he was the only person who ever listened to me, and didn't blame me for everything. He was always sympathetic and on my side. My home life at the time wasn't that great. He also had this raspy voice that was slow and soft-sounding. For about 5 years, he would call for a few weeks at a time, every 3 or 4 months. Eventually, he told me that he had traveled a lot and was only in my area at certain times of the year. He also told me that he worked with children, but never told me what. Over those 5 years, his questions got more personal, more leading, and more sexual. But he had earned some kind of sick trust from me, and though I was reluctant, he eventually got me talking about sex. By the time I was 13, I knew that our conversations were wrong, and I started to avoid the phone. I never answered if I could help it. Whenever he did catch me answering, he would always make me feel bad for avoiding him, like I was his only friend or something. And sometimes I felt like he was my only friend too. Around that time, he told me a story of a girl around my age that he had messed around with at a camp or something, how she'd asked him to touch her somewhere. I felt very uncomfortable when he told me, but I continued to be nice. I was a little afraid of making him mad. I don't know why, just my instincts, I guess. One day he called and told me that he'd seen me that day, walking home from school with my friends, and told me even what I was wearing. I was thoroughly creeped out by now. I was beyond scared. I don't know why I didn't tell my dad, who was a police officer, by the way. I guess I thought I'd get in trouble because of all of the things I'd told the man. Then the man asked me to meet him at a Walmart parking lot near my house. I told him I would, but I had no intention of doing so. My phone rang so many times that night, and I wouldn't answer. When someone did answer, there was never anyone there. I pretended like I didn't know anything about it. I stopped answering the phone altogether. I made scheduled times for my friends to call, and I never walked home alone again. I never talked to him again either. And he did call, many times, all the way up until I was 16. He would ask for me and I'd say that he had the wrong number and hang up as soon as I heard his voice. But that's not the end. In 2005, I was in college. I was about 30 at the time, and I was driving home from class. I was flipping through stations on the radio when a voice caught my attention. I kept listening, and I was certain it was his voice. I was dumbfounded. It was a Christian radio talk show, talking to a guest who was a youth pastor who traveled around. I know it was him. He even told some of the stories to the station that he had told to me before. I listened the whole way home. I got home and turned it off and tried to forget about it. After a few days, I thought I should contact the station, but my radio wasn't on the station anymore, and I just couldn't figure out which one it was. In 2015, I was visiting my sister, who is 20 years older than me, and we got around to talking about it. I told her a little, and she told me. He had talked to her too a few times, but she didn't know he'd ever talked to me. She didn't know who he was, or how he even got our number. I still wonder if he's out there still, preying on young or vulnerable girls, or just what. I hate thinking now what he might have done to someone by now, and I hate that I never told my dad. Even though nothing bad actually happened to me, it did affect my whole life. Mainly the way I am with my kids. No one ever understands why I'm so overprotective, even of my adult children now. I don't trust anyone outside my inner circle, and I eye everyone as a potential creeper. It's kept me and my kids safe, I guess, but it never allowed for much living. What is up, guys? Blue Spooky here, as always. Thank you guys so much for watching, especially if you made it this far to the end of the video. As always, be sure to let me know what you guys think, and please feel free to like, comment, or subscribe if you feel so inclined. I know some people have also had some problems about videos not appearing in their sub box, so please make sure to hit that little bell if you guys want to always be notified of when my next video comes out. As always, links to all of my social media will be in the description of the video below. You can find links to my Twitter, Gmail, Twitch, and Facebook accounts. So if you guys ever want to talk to me, just go ahead and shoot me a message on any of those, and I'll try to respond to your message as soon as possible. I'm also going to start trying to stream on Twitch a little bit more, so if you guys have notifications on there, you'll be notified right away when I go live. I might also try to do some on YouTube, but I haven't decided yet. I'm still kind of trying to decide what kind of streams I want to do. Anyways, if you guys have a story you would like to send in, or if you have a story you would like to suggest that I read, go ahead and send me a message on any of those links in the description below. If you do decide to send in a story, please be sure to include the title, how you would like to be credited, and any genres that the story might have, if it does have one. If you guys are curious about the music used in this video, go ahead and take a look in the description below as well. I always put all of the music in the order in which it appears in the video, and I also have links to the artists as well. Last but not least, I also have a Patreon if you guys feel like you want to contribute to the channel a little bit. But of course, as always, it is never required, and you will never have to pay for watching any of my videos, so that's just something you do if you feel like it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and please be sure to leave your feedback in the comments below. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you guys have a great day. Thank you very much.